Percentage, increase and decrease. In today's lesson, we will be looking at how to increase and decrease by percentages. Okay, so let's have a look at some examples first to start off with. Okay, so we'll start them off quite simple and easy. The aim of this lesson is to use multipliers to increase and decrease. So to start off with, you might have seen a question like increase £30 by 20%. Okay, so the most common or the usual method that pupils will do is that you would work out 10% of 30 first. Okay, well, 10% of 30 is 3. Then you would work out 20%, which you double is 6. And because you are increasing 30 by 20%, you would then do 30 add 6 to get £36. Okay, let's have a look at another question like this. Increase £46 by 15%. Okay, so again, the common method would be to work out 10%, okay, which is £4.60. Obviously divide by 10 to work out 10%. Then I would work out 5% and I can half that, £2.30. I could then work out 15% by adding these two together. Okay, so I can do £4.60, add £2.30, that gives me £6.90. Okay, so again, if I'm increasing £46 by 15%, I'm going to do 46, add £6.90. Okay, and I end up with £52.90. Okay. Let's have a look at a more worded question in this method, then we'll move on to using multipliers. So you might get a question like this. A packet of crisps normally weighs 125 grams. The packet is increased in weight by 20%. We are going to work out the new weight of the packet of crisps. So this is an example of a more worded question. So you've got 125 grams. Okay, we want to work out 20%. So 10%, obviously you divide by 10 to get 12.5. Then I can work 20% from that because I can do 12.5 times 2. I can double to get £25. Oh, it's not pounds, is it? It's weight. Again, so used to using the same units that sometimes you can forget. So always check back to see what units. Now increase again, the weight's increased. So I'm going to do 125, add 25 to get 150 grams. Make sure we got the correct unit. Okay, rightio. So let's have a look then, okay, about how to answer questions like this as a multiplier. Now, let's have a look at the background first. So let's first write a question. Let's say increase 30 by 20%. Okay, let's just write this down so we can properly make out what it is. Okay, right. So rather than working out 10% and then working out 20%, then adding this on, we can actually work this out in one go. And that is a far more easier method and a more straightforward method. Obviously, if you have a non-calculator paper, sometimes you might prefer to work out 10% and then double it. Or you might want to work out, use the multiplier method. But generally speaking, if you have a calculator or you're allowed to use a calculator on your paper or your test or your homework, then using the multiplier method is far easier and a lot quicker and less time consuming. So increase 30 by 20%. What percentage is the 30 worth? Now 30 is worth 100%, okay? That's the number that we start off with, that's 100%. if we're going to be making that bigger by 20%, because the word increase means bigger, we are going to add 20% onto it, okay? 100% add 20% is 120%. Now, what's 120% as a decimal? Now, how do we convert a percentage into a decimal? Well, we divide by 100, okay? To convert a percentage into a decimal, you always divide by 100, okay? So if I divide 120% by 100, you can do that in your head if you want to. That's 1.2. Okay, so increase 30 by 20%. If I'm increasing 30 by 20%, I can multiply it by 1.2, okay, because it's got the 100% added on the 20%, which is 120%. So the 30 is already included in that. So I just do 30 times 1.2. Now again, if you've got a calculator, you can easily do that on your calculator. That gives me 36. Oh, not pounds, is it? It's just a number. There we are. Just get into the habit of writing pounds. 36. Or obviously you can multiply this. Now it's up to you. However you multiply by decimals, you might take the decimal point out and put it back in, or you might use a lattice method. There is a video of this as well, so you can tune into that. So I'm just going to do 1.2 just to show you how nice and easy the lattice method is. 30 down the side. Okay, draw my box, split the digits up, and then you draw your diagonal lines this way and extend out. Okay, and then you just multiply. So 2 times 3 is 6, so 0 and 6, 0 tens. 2 times 0 is 0, so 0, 0. 1 times 3 is 0, 3. 1 times 0 is 0. Then add the numbers in the diagonals. That diagonal is 0, that diagonal is 6, that diagonal is 3, that's 0. Drop the decimal point down and you can see 36.0, which is just 36. Right, let's have a look at some of the examples by using the multiplier then. Okay, so let's do increase 300 by 48%. Okay, now let's do it both ways so you can just see and compare. So if I'm increasing 300 by 48%, I'm going to work at 10% first, which is quite simple and straightforward, which would be 30. I can work at 40%, yeah, because I can just times that by 4, which would be 120. Right, I need to work at 8%. So I've got two different things that I can do. I can work at 1% first, which would be 3. And then obviously I could times 1% by 8. So 3 times 8 is 24. Now I'm making it bigger by 48%. So these are the numbers that I want. So that's going to be 144. So I'm going to do 300. Add 144. That gives me 444. And you can see that's method 1. Or the other method is, well, if I'm making 300 bigger by 48%, well, the 300 is worth 100%. I'm making it bigger by 48%, so I'm going to add 48% onto it, which is 148%. What's 148% as a decimal? Well, I divide that by 100, so I get 1.48. All I do is I do 300 times 1.48. Do that on your calculator. Okay, and I end up with 444. Or again, you can use the lattice method. So I can show you that. Okay, like that, 1.48 at the top. Okay, and then 300 on the side. Split between the digits, always. Okay, and then you draw your diagonals. Extend the diagonals. It really helps. Okay, like that. And then you just times the numbers in the boxes and fill them out. 8 times 3, 24. 8 times 0, 0. 8 times 0, 0. 4 times 3, 12. 4 times 0, that's 0. That's the same, 0. 1 times 3 is 3, 0, 3. The next one 0, because anything multiplied by 0 is 0. Add the diagonals. That diagonal 0, that diagonal 0. That's 4. That's 4. Oh, and that's 4. Drop the decimal point down, and you can see it's 444.00. We don't really write the 0.00 dB, so it's just 444. Okay, so let's have a look again at another example, and then we'll have a look at what multipliers our percentages will be if we are increasing. So let's do this time increase 6 by 36%. So let's use a multiplier method. I've got 100%, which is by 6. I'm making it bigger, so I'm adding 36% onto it. That's 136%. What's 136% as a decimal? Well, it's 1.36. I'm going to do 6 times 1.36 again. Entirely up to you, whatever method you want to use. Normally this would be in a calculator paper, so it's 8 pounds or 8.16. Okay, right. Let's have a look. Okay, I'm just going to draw myself. Not a table, but it's going to say increase. Okay, increase. Okay, by 10%, 25%, 17%, 1%, 5%, 12.5%, 2.4%. Right, and I'm going to write down multiplier. Okay, what would the multiplier be if I'm making something bigger by 10%? So what would I times my number by if I'm making it bigger by 10%? Well, my original value would always be 100%. And because I'm making it bigger, I'm going to add 10% onto it, which would be 110%. And then obviously convert your percentage into a decimal, that's 1.1. So I'm going to be timesing my number by 1.1 if I want to make it bigger by 10%. What about 25%? Well, again, I'm going to do 100%, add 25%. That gives me 125%. That as a decimal is 1.25. So I would times my number by 1.25 if I'm making it bigger by 25%. 17% is the same. 100 plus 17 is 117%. That as a decimal is 1.17. Next one, 100% add 1% is 101%. That as a decimal is 1.01. So 100% add 5% is 105%. That as a decimal would be 1.05. This one, so again, just showing you that it can be really easy with decimals. If you're making something bigger by 12.5%, you would do 100% add 12.5%. That gives you 112.5%. Right, that as a decimal would be 1.125. So you times your number by 1.125. Next one, 100% add 2.4%. That would give you 102.4%. Work that out as a decimal, 1.024. So you would multiply your number by 1.024 if you were going to increase your number by that. Right, let's have a look at decrease questions then. So decrease 60 by 20%. Okay, so again, the most common method would be to work out 10%, which would be 6. And then you would work out 20% by doubling that, which would be 12. Now it's decrease, which means you need to subtract. So I would do 60 take 12, okay, and end up with 48. That is the most common method. Let's have a look at another example like this. Decrease 800 by 4%, okay? So again, the most common method here would be, well, to work out, you could work out 10% first, or you could just go straight on to working out 1%. 10% is 80, so 1% would be 8. Then I want to work out 4%, so I'm going to times that by 4. So 8 times 4 is 32. So again, we are going to decrease. So I'm going to do 800 subtract 32 to get 768. Okay, so these are the most common methods that you will do in your assessments or in your exams, but sometimes you need a more quicker method and you might want to use a multiplier. So let's have a look at an example of using the multiplier. So let's do decrease 90 by 20% this time. Okay, so here this time the 90 is again worth 100%. That's the number that we started off with. So whatever the number that you start off with is always 100%. So the 90 is 100%. Okay. Now, rather than adding this time, we are going to have to subtract because we are decreasing. So 100 take away 20% would give you 80%. Okay. So now what you're going to do is you are going to do 90 times, well, 80% as a decimal. Remember to divide that by 100 would be 0.8. So I'm going to times 90 by 0.8. Okay, and I end up with 72. Let's check that using the other method. So I'm going to work out 10% first, which would be 9. 20%, which would be 18. Then I'm going to do 90 minus 18, which is 72. Okay, and you can see we end up with the same answer. Okay. Right, let's have a look at another example then. We're going to say decrease 120 by 35%. Okay. So the most common method would be to work out 10%, which is 12. 30%, you have to times by 3, which is 36. Then I can work out 5%, which is quite easy, isn't it? Because I can half 10%, which is 6. Well, 35% is just this added together. So 36 add 6 is 42. Right, I'm decreasing, so I need to subtract. So I need to do 120, subtract 42. Okay, and I end up with 78. Let's have a look without doing this. My 100% value, I'm going to subtract 35% off from it. What am I left with? Well, 100 take away 35 is 65%. What 65% as a decimal is 0.65. So the number that I started off is 120. Okay, so I'm going to do 120 times 0.65. Okay, and I end up with 78, and you can see you end up with the same answers. Again, you can use a lattice method for this again as well, or you can do it the way the traditional method by timesing the two numbers together without the decimal point and then putting the decimal point back in, or you could just use a calculator. Okay, right, let's have a look at another table. Let's draw a table. Okay, we're going to say that's decrease. That's 10%, 25%, 17%, 1%, 5%, 33.5%, 7%, and 24.3%. And then I'm just going to write multiplier here. Okay, so if I'm decreasing something by 10%, what would I multiply that number by? Well, your original value would be 100%, and you would subtract 10%, which would give you 90%. So then what's 90% as a decimal? It would be 0.9. Okay, so if you were to make something decrease it by 10%, you would multiply it by 0.9. What about 25%? Well, you would have 100%. You would subtract 25% from it, which would give you 75%. What's 75% as a decimal? It's 0.75. So if you were making a number or you were decreasing a number by 25%, you would multiply by 0.75. Let's do 17%. So you've got 100%. You would subtract 17% because you are decreasing. So 100 take away 17 is 83%. What's 83% as a decimal? 0.83. So if you were decreasing something by 17%, you would times it by 0.83. Now 1%, so you do 100%, take away 1%, which would be 99%. And again, your decimal would be 0.99 that you multiply by. 5%, so again, 100%, take away 5%, you are left with 95%. So what's 95% as a decimal? 0.95. Let's have a look at using decimals. It works exactly the same way. So we'll do 100%, take away 33.5%. And it was 66.5%. Now, this is the tricky bit where people get a bit confused. That as a decimal is, obviously, you've got to divide that by 100, haven't you? So make sure you do that. You just don't divide it by 10. The answer would be 0.665. So if you were decreasing a number by 33.5%, the decimal that you multiply by with would be 0.665. 7% is simple and straightforward. 100% take away 7% would be 93%, and that would be 0.93. Okay, and then I'm going to do 100%, take away 24.3%. Okay, so 100 take away 24.3 gives me 75.7%. Now that as a decimal would be 0.757. Okay. Right, so let's quickly have a look at working this question out with a more worded question before we end our lesson. So let's say a CD Walkman originally costing £75 is reduced by 30% in the sale. And we are working out the sale price. Okay, so let's use the multiplier method. So my original number, which is 100%, is being reduced by 30%. So I subtract 30%. So it's worth 70%. 70% as a decimal is 0.7. So I'm going to do 75 times 0.7. Okay. So again, on your calculator straight away, or you could just do 0.7 times 75. Okay. Lattice method is a good method for multiplying. So watch those videos. Okay. So 7 times 7. Okay. 49. 7 times 5. 35. 0 times 7, 0, and 0 times 5, 0. Add the diagonals, that's 5. Well, 9 add 3, 10, 11, 12. Carry the 1 over. 4 add 0, add 0, add 1 is 5. That's 0. Drop the decimal point down, is £52.50. Okay. Right, let's have a look at another one. The value of Amber's house has gone up by 20% in the last year. If the house was worth £150,000, what is it worth now? Okay, so again, you're going to have 100% and the value of the house has gone up by 20%. So add 20% onto it. That's 120%. What's 120% as a decimal? It's 1.2. So all I need to do is I need to do 150,000 times 1.2. And again, you could do it on your calculator, or you could do it lattice method, or you can multiply it by doing it the traditional method, taking the decimal point and putting that back in. I've just done it on the calculator and it's 180,000. This multiplier method is quick and easy if you're using a calculator. Otherwise, you may want to resort to the traditional method of looking at 10% and then maybe 1% or whatever the percentage that you need. But the multiplier method is generally used with a calculator question, and it's helpful as well when doing compound interest, because that plays a big part in that. So it's really good to know. And obviously, if you've got a calculator, it's really quick, really simple, and really easy to do. So it's worth looking at. So this was today's lesson on percentage increase and decrease. Thank you for watching.